and welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. And let's not waste no time. Let's get right into it. So, the NBA was still relatively young in the 1960s. It was born when the BAA and the NBL merged in 1946 to create the NBA. So the NBA was born in 1946. So the league was still relatively young in 1964, but it was growing. After retirement of George Mikan, you already had Bob Cousy. Then along came Bill Russell. Then along came Wilt. Then along came the big O, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Lenny Wilkins. A lot of great players came into the league over the years. And so, but the NBA really hadn't gotten a lot of TV exposure. There really had been a lot of TV exposure for the NBA. And so in 1964, the 1964 All-Star Game was to be the showcase for the NBA because the All-Star Game was going to be broadcast on ABC and the NBA was going to be shown to hundreds of thousands of TV viewers. And if it went well, it would mean huge things for the NBA. Obviously, it did go well because look at where the NBA evolved to after that, into the 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 2000s, up until now. But there was some turbulence before the 1964 All-Star Game, okay? And this story starts back in 1954, I believe. Yeah. So in 1954, Bob Cousy established the Players Union. And he was doing all the clerical work, filing, yada, yada, yada. So that got to be a little bit too much for him. Then he passed it on to his teammate, Tommy Heinsohn. And so what the players wanted, they wanted pension, job security, full-time trainers, shorter exhibitions, and eliminate back-to-backs. Okay. And the players worked summer jobs. The NBA players themselves, they worked summer jobs. And they wanted to form a new union. Okay. So I just mentioned that the 1964 All-Star Game was supposed to be the big showcase for the NBA because the game was being broadcast on ABC. Okay. So that was supposed to be the big showcase. But the players nearly did not play because the players were planning a boycott of the 1964 NBA All-Star Game. They were planning a boycott. They were not going to play unless the league recognized their union and the demands. Okay. So Bob Short, who was the owner of the LA Lakers before Jack Kent Cooke, and in the pregame before the 1964 All-Star Game, Elgin Baylor yelled to Bob Short, "Hey Bob, you can go F yourself." Okay. That's what Elgin Baylor said. Elgin Baylor said, "You can go F yourself." Okay. So, as I mentioned, the Players Association was started by Bob Cousy in 1954. The players themselves were earning like $7,500. And as I mentioned, they had to work summer jobs. Okay. Players like Bill Russell, Lenny Wilkins, Oscar Robertson wanted to boycott. Players like Chamberlain wanted to play and hash things out later. But a vote was taken, and the players were to boycott the All-Star game, okay? So I don't know what the scheduled time tip-off was. It didn't mention what the tip-off time was. But the scheduled time of the tip-off came and went. And no players took the court. And ABC was furious. They were like, what in the world is going on here? What in the world is going on? So ABC went to the NBA and said, you have 20 minutes to start this All-Star game, or we are done with you. We are done with the NBA. And the owners, needing that TV exposure, knowing that the NBA needed that TV exposure, said, okay, we'll give you what you want, okay? And the union was recognized, their demands were met, and they went out and they played the 1964 All-Star game, which was in Boston Garden. And the rest is pretty much history. But just think about where the NBA would have been today if the 1964 boycott of the All-Star game actually happened. It almost did, but it didn't. So I mentioned a few videos ago how there was championship parity in the 1970s, okay? There was championship parity in the 1970s, and there was no back-to-back championship winners in the 70s. In the 70s, it was Knicks, Bucks, Lakers, Knicks. 74, it was the Celtics. Then it was the Golden State Warriors. Then went back to the Celtics. Then it was the Blazers, the Bullets, now the Washington Wizards, and the Seattle Supersonics. Okay, so there was championship parity in the 1970s. And in 1979, there was an image problem with the NBA. Okay. Check this out. In 1980, let me go back to 1970 first. In 1970, 60% of the players in the NBA were black, okay? By 1980, 75% of the players were black. And 75% of the fans were white, okay? So, I think it was around 1979 or 1980 where the New York Knicks had their first all-black hack team. And some of you guys may remember Nelson George. Nelson George, he was a author of a couple of books. Nelson George said that the media called the New York Knicks the New York Nigger Bockers. I kid you not. You can ask Michael Ray Richardson, who was on that team, who was on the all-black team that the Knicks had in the late 70s, early 80s. You can just ask Michael Ray Richardson. So, not only were they battling an image problem, because there were just so many fights in the NBA. Fights were common in the NBA in the 70s. They were common, okay? And part of the image problem was the league was seen as too black. Another part of the image problem was the fights. You know, there was the Kermit Washington punch that knocked Rudy Tomjanovich out for the entire season. Suffered several facial fractures. There was that. And so, fights were common in the NBA at that time. Another thing contributing was the low attendance. And Earl Monroe actually talked about this. He said there are so many great players in the league that all of them kind of nullify or cancel them out. And what people want to come out and see is total teamwork. And I think that's something that's really missing in the game now. So Earl Monroe actually talked about how that. And so another part of the image problem was drug use. It was drug use. Yeah. There are a lot of players who were doing crack in the NBA. Not just in the NBA, but in the NFL. Drugs were prevalent in the NBA and the NFL at that time. And a lot of players admitted to using drugs. They admitted to using cocaine. Among the big names, Bernard King, Spencer Haywood, Michael Ray Richardson, David Thompson. And so Spencer Haywood, during the 1980 finals, he once got so high, as the story goes. Spencer Haywood once got so high during the 1980 NBA finals that he actually passed out. And they asked him what had happened, and he said that he had lifted weights too hard or something like that. And of course, I mentioned David Thompson. Bernard King actually checked into the. Pretty sure you hear some noise in the background. Dang it. Somebody's doing something in the background, so let me go on ahead and finish right now. And so the NBA was battling the image problem in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And let's just say Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came in at the right time, because it turned the league around for them. It turned the league around for Magic. Turned the league around, but it took like 3 to 4 years. 80, 81, 82, 83, 84. I would say the turning point came during the 84 NBA Finals. That was the tipping point. Then, along with Isaiah Magic Bird, along came Clyde Drexler, along came Charles Barkley, along came John Stockton, and the rest is history. All right. That's it for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. Y'all don't want to hear that annoying noise in the background no more, so I'm going to end it right here. Stay tuned for more content, because I will be bringing y'all more. Peace out, y'all.